All right. Video number 3 of the day. Here we go. Okay. So, I don't know. I might just have to go on down the list till I'm done. So, I was listening to a testimony yesterday that was super good. It was super good. And it was about this guy who, um, basically grew up uh, in a household where there was never anything spiritually talked about. Um, but he But apparently his mom was involved in like some voodoo hoodoo stuff, maybe Santeria or something, because they were like Hispanic. Um, but she never talked about it, never told him about it or nothing. So he grew up, at least in the context of him growing up. But he grew up in this house where he would get tormented by demons at night, and he was just like, "What in the world?" And he would try to get his mom to help him, and he would be like, "Mom, mom, mom." He would go to the door, and she would just tell him, "Go back to bed. You're just dreaming." And she would never even like open the door. So he just grew up tortured in the night. Like he would wake up, he said like the bed would just be soaked because he would just be sweating torment, and it just, and that was like most of the nights, you know. And so he eventually, it got to be about 12 or 13, and he had a vision of Jesus, like um and he had a vision where he went up, he floated up and up and up and up, and then he was like before Jesus. And um he just, at that point, he was really hurt, he was, suicidal and all this stuff. And so when he saw Jesus, he goes, uh "You're not real, this is a dream." And it's so funny because I don't know if atheists and all these people who are not Christians like know that you're just saying what you're saying out of hurt. Like, it's very clear and obvious. There's a couple of people that you can tell that they have a genuine uh, interest in being accurate with what they feel like they believe. Those people are typically agnostic. But, the atheists feel a way. Like, it's just so very clear. So, but it just, when he said that about just saying basically to Jesus' face, like, "You're not real," like, I was like, wow, that actually, that whole concept of saying that God is not real is the antithesis of what the Bible says. Very notable scripture where it says, if anyone wants anything from God, I should probably look it up. I don't have my physical Bible here, and we all know I can't not make a video and look up scriptures. But it says, like, basically that, um, you know, you first have to believe that he exists and that he rewards those who diligently seek him. It's like, that's, if you're going to get anything from God. It also says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. So you've got these two uh, really fundamental scriptures in terms of understanding how to even start this process with God. It's like, how many times have I heard that in my life? It's like, you must first believe that God exists, that he exists, and that he rewards those who diligently seek him. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. So when you say God is not real, I mean, you cut right into the heart of both of those things. And you drive a wedge between you and God. Because it's like, faith is the thing that you need. And I don't even think I don't think it's like some uh, formula thing that you have to do. I think it's just God's uh, boundary. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I don't see a lot of demons like respecting this boundary. Like, I mean, how many movies have you seen where the people are in there and they're trying to do that? They're like, "You're not real. This isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real," and they're just doing that. You know, and you might succeed because it's a movie, and they just disappear. But it's only just to mess with you. Like, they just messing with you. They're not respecting your. "Oh, well, they don't believe in us. We got to go." So they don't care. They'll come all up into your space whether you believe or not. But God will never do that. Um, if you say like God is not real, unless you've got like family members praying for you and all of these other ways that God mercifully tries to lawfully use to you know, what do you call it, to show up in your life some way, manifest in your life some way. um Other than that, like he won't do that. And it's like that's the one thing you need to say to make sure God doesn't mess with you, is that you say he's not real. So all of these people who are trying to prove God's um, whatever, it's like you've already shot yourself in the foot by saying that he isn't real. Because it's like the thing that you need for him to come around is the thing that you're saying out of your mouth, the opposite thing that you're saying out of your mouth to prove that he is real. So it's just like it's like a self-defeating thing, or maybe it's a self, it keeps people who don't want it out, I guess. But you gotta, I hope you're honest with yourself about it, because if you're just saying that and you don't really believe that, maybe God can tell the difference, but it's like you're defeating the purposes. Um, which kind of ties into this other thing that I noticed, which is that people, I think I talked about this before, where people started saying, "Oh my God" again. For a long time, they wouldn't say it because um, the G, no one wanted to capitalize the G. And then suddenly I saw the trend. I saw people putting, "Oh my God," lowercase g. And then it was like suddenly I couldn't stop seeing it everywhere. Like, I was on Twitter at the time, like heavy, like I pretty much am off Twitter now. But it was like, maybe a year or two ago, I started to see people doing this. It wasn't not just "Oh my God," but like any phrase with the word God in it. So, you know, for God's sake, God only knows, that type of stuff. Like that stuff was gone for a long time. Or just OMG. Uh, you might see an OMG, but you never saw "Oh my God." You can tell me I'm lying, but I know what the linguistics were doing. So now you see it all the time, which is super weird, because it's like it's weird what people are admitting by using it like that. Because what you're saying is, when you're doing "Oh my God" lowercase g, first of all, you are admitting openly that you have an inferior God that you worship. That's just some generic God. You probably don't even know who he is, but you're swearing on his name. Some God will let you swear on his name without you feeling any type of way. So you're just worshiping some random God. You do worship something. You don't know, maybe you don't know what it is or whatever, but it's lowercase g. It's not a big deal. So you're worshiping some non-big deal God, because if you put the uppercase G God, that might offend other people. And those other people, so other people matter more than the God that you serve. Or other people might even be the God that you serve. Either way, they get the lowercase g, because they're not worthy of an uppercase G. Because we all know that anyone using the uppercase G is talking about a supreme being. He's talking about the conventional, largely Christian God. And y'all aren't talking about him. Like, how is that better? Like, just the way that lesser things are just easier and better, and that the supreme thing just will send your world into a hole. Like, we don't even want to address that. It's super, super, like, that reflects poorly on you. Like, you're saying so many things with that, just that one little concession. Like the way that it came back after they made it nondescript and generic is really like funny, I guess. I don't know. The other thing that guy said, in that testimony where he was talking about, he saw the vision of Jesus and he's like, you're not real. Well, it happened again the next night. And that time he was just like, okay, I can't, you're real. I give up. Like, and, basically he became a Christian. Well, when he was coming out of that vision, of Jesus, he was like back in his bed and he said he saw a phone number appear on his roof, on his ceiling. And like he copied the number down and then he was afraid to call it because he's like, what is this? Like, he knew it was from God, but he just didn't know like what he was going to run into. And so he was just like, and it's so funny. I was listening to it and I'm thinking like, it's going to be a church. It's going to be a this. It's going to be a that. Like, I didn't know it's going to be like some spiritual person that's going to help him, whatever. So I'm just like sitting waiting to hear about what this number is. And it took him a couple of days to even get the courage to call it. And so finally he calls it. He's just like, how am I going to explain that I got this random number? Like, oh, Jesus gave me your number. So he calls it and the person goes, hello. And he goes, hello. And the guy goes, Bob or whatever. And then he goes, I don't remember the names. He's like, Jeff? Like, it was somebody that he knew from, like, I think he was still like a kid at this point. He was like an older kid, like 13 or something. But it was like a friend of his that had moved. And it was a friend of his that used to go to church. And like his uncle or something used to like drive the bus around, like drive people, like bus them to church. And he, he didn't grow up in a background, so he didn't really understand church, but, and he thought it was kind of boring. But, it got him out of the house, which was, full of demons. And, his mom was like, I don't know if she was abusive, but she was just, she did not like the fact that he was going to church and stuff. Like as he progressed in his faith, like she didn't like the fact that he was worshiping God at all, or worshiping Jesus maybe. But so he would just go to this friend's house. Like his friend was in walking distance and he would just go there or his friend would be like, you want to come to church or whatever? Because that's where we're going to be. And he was like, fine. He would just go to go. And it would be all day and he would get to be out of the house. And like he would, and his friend, of course he loved his friend. He was a great friend, and he said he would go to the church and like, make people laugh. And like everyone just thought he was so funny. So he liked it. And I just thought about that and I was like, you know what? Like, church is boring. It is. But that's not because of church itself. It's because it doesn't matter why. The point is, everything that he described about it that he liked is the point. It's like, it's the stuff that you do in the going, in between. Like, we all know that church has got some major, major issues. But I don't know. I remember growing up and with the guy that had the church van, or I don't know, maybe it was my actual dad that had the church van. I don't know. That went around and bussed people and who didn't have cars, who didn't have transportation to church and took them around. It's like, is it about getting people to church? Kind of, but it's mostly the doing. It's like he thought church was boring, but he went because his friend was such a great friend, and it was a reprieve from this life that he had that no one knew about, and it stuck in his mind. It's like, it's the stuff in between that matters. So the church, I criticize church all the time, but I still know that it is the thing that God put in place. And if God ever talks to you, he's going to talk to you about church and talking to this person, that person. It's always going to be the same thing because it's all of it's the thing that happens between church, after church, before church, that matters. It's what church is getting you to do, to produce. So of course I love that God gave him a phone number. And I love that it was his friend that he knew that was, and then he was like, well, where's your church? And it was like right down the street from him. Like he had no idea. So, and he just reunited him, and like, it just was like, yeah, get back with your friend. And yeah, and it just totally, the foundation had already been laid, and he didn't know like that he had already had this foundation of God from this friend that he had, that whose uncle drove a church bus. Like, it just was great. I was like, this is just the form, and some of it is just going to drag until we get to heaven. It's just going to drag until we get to heaven, guys. Like, everything is going to be a little not cool until we get to heaven. So, you might think that the old timey cathedral with the ceilings and the paintings is over the top, but there's going to be something in it that is appropriate, that is right, that is orthodox, and there's going to be stuff about it that isn't. Or maybe it's going to start out great and then get the message is going to be lost in the sauce or whatever, which is another thing I was thinking about. That's a great segue, because I am having this theory right now that like literally everything that's good, like anything good, just has been started by believers. Like, I mean, it's just getting to the point where it's, and not just like anything good, like, Post-its. I'm talking about like just fundamental things that we take for granted. Like, there's some things I'm pretty sure that they're still willing to give the church credit for. Like, I'm pretty sure they're still giving Christians credit for, hospitals and, all these things, adoption agencies, all of these things that just didn't exist because it came directly from the Bible's, it came directly from the Bible's belief system and what God says is valuable, which no other groups were having 2,000 years ago. It was like people put their lame and their dead outside and let them whatever, or sacrifice them to their God because they didn't want to deal with it or whatever. They're trying to get rain or whatever. So this thing of like, no, human life is valuable. And I think even like hospitals were really places for people to get healed, like literally people to like lay hands on. Like, I don't like to read all it. Every time I think about like early church history, I just think of these huge, long, thick volumes of like dry history dates. And then also, you never know who's dubious or whatever. So, schools and hospitals and like actual science and, education, like all of our universities, guys, these illustrious universities, which are now being tanked by who? Not Christians. Yale, Harvard, the secret societies. Okay, guys, they come in after. They let the Christians build it. Maybe a couple of them started at the beginning, try to sabotage the building or whatever. America, for example. Do you know what I'm saying? Like even something like I heard the other day, like that unions, where we think of unions as like a liberal thing or like a communist thing. That was started by believers. It's like everything. It's like either that gets taken over and corrupted, or co-opted over time as this. We don't mention the faith of the people that started it. We're just like, oh well, it's Americans and everybody. Anybody can be good and anybody can do this, so it doesn't matter that they're Christians. Everybody was Christian. It's just a thing that humans do. It's like, no, 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 no. If it's so easy for everyone to do it, how come y'all aren't doing it? Why is San Francisco, why are all these cities riddled with homeless people? And you keep coming up with initiatives, you keep raising the money, and then the money disappears and the problem is the same. And then you just keep saying like, Homeless people deserve rights as the situation just gets worse. Like, people are taking for granted that it's the Spirit of God, it's the Christian value paired with the Spirit of God, the conviction that keeps you up in the night when you're like, I know I do not want to run for office. It's a terrible job. I don't want to do that. And God just like gnaws and gnaws and gnaws at you until you do it. And then you end up serving in community, and then non-Christians get in there and they just get fat. Like, I'm starting to think that literally everything good in life that we've been able to enjoy just about has been facilitated by a believer. And like that, I'm just going to think that. I'm going to think that until someone can prove me wrong. Like, that's what I'm switching to. Like, even something like Alcoholics Anonymous, which now you can say like, oh, it's just, whatever. People have a lot of criticism about it, but its origins are undeniably Christian. Undeniably. And whatever happened after that, whatever. And then it's always like, oh, no, he was really a Freemason. It's like, blah, 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 guys. What about music? Okay. All our modern music comes from gospel. You might even say blues, but even blues was originally just sad gospel songs, like sad songs to God. So you can't say that was started by Freemasons, guys. That was started by slaves who became Christians. So I mean, that's a great track record. And all you get here is just like condemnation and criticism and people ragging on you and rolling their eyes at you. And it's like, you literally have preserved this place until the present moment. Like, I just hope you know that, Christian. Like, you are part of a preserving campaign. Maybe you raised the baby that did the thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we just, we're doing the jobs, man. We're doing it. We are making this world a better place. And the people that actually say they want to make the world a better place, all I see, I can't even say that I see a couple of just genuine people doing it, because you never really see it. You hear them talk about it, and the only people that I see doing it, because it's a thankless reality, you have to have an energy that comes from inside here. And I don't know. I'm not saying like everybody that isn't a Christian is a horrible person. But I know that we have started things that have ended up benefiting whole groups of people. And people think that Christians are the last people to do that. Like, we only help ourselves or something. We're the first ones to do that. That's projection right there of the highest order. It's like, we're going to do something that's going to benefit everybody, because only in our philosophy is it inherent that everyone belongs to God, and it help everybody. Love your enemies. That's what our thing says. What does your thing say? So it's not a thing to help people that don't believe what we believe. Like, we've been doing that for so long. Like, God tells us to do that. He's like, I created everybody. Like, your God is indifferent and doesn't care, and says you're going to be back here again if you cares about your works and your good behavior, your good job and your bad job. It's just like, there's a precedent for us being that way. Y'all don't even have one, and y'all are just like hell bent on proving that y'all have like moral. And by y'all, I mean literally everyone else. Okay, so I'm done talking about that, I think. Okay, so this is just like a little tidbit that doesn't matter, but like, it matters to me. Like, so that testimony I was telling you about with the guy when he was a kid, And he went to church. God gave him the phone number, and so like he got a little bit older, and he said like the devil came to him with this deal that was like, I'll stop tormenting you, because he was still getting dreams, still getting whatever. And he like took him outside and like showed him like, I don't even know if it was his house or it was just like a house on the block, but it was just like he saw these demons like going into this house. And he said it was like millions of them. But I don't know. Spiritual eyes can be something else. I know I had a dream one time, or I've had lots of experiences, but I had a dream one time that it was like I felt like I was being observed, and I was like in my bed laying, and I was dreaming, but it was like I could see my room, and it was like I was being observed by multiple whatever. And so it was like I could sense a presence, almost like if you like had people with like lighters, or I don't know, little like flashlight, pencil flashlights or whatever. It wasn't like they had lights, but it was just like I could see a row, or it seemed like there was like a few people, and then it was like a row behind them, and then another row appeared behind them, and then another row appeared behind them, and I was like, what? So I don't know, spirit stuff is weird, but uh yeah, he was like, I'll stop tormenting you, but what I'm gonna need you to stop doing is speak in the name of Jesus. Or he's like, stop telling people about Jesus. And then he said, he was like, because I've had people bound for so long, and uh what you're doing is able to like get them out of these chains. And like it's so funny because I've heard so many people talk about having conversations with God, or not God, but having conversations with the devil, or having conversations with demons. And they talk like that. It's so weird. It's now happened so many times that I just have to concede that that's how they talk. But when you hear it, it just sounds like, really, it sounds like the person just made the whole thing up. It's super cringy because he literally is like, stop doing this. You're causing hell to be on fire, and tons of people are getting changed, and what it's like, you made that up. Like no one's going to talk like that. But honestly, like, aside from the fact that I've seen it heard it so many times from so many different people, and yeah, maybe they're all, from the same weird camp or whatever, but I doubt it. I think it's a thing that happens when, because I've been on the other side of it too. There's something about when you are um, on the side of what's good, or you're on the side of what's evil, like at a certain point, things get so concentrated. It's like the devil is evil. Like there's no gray area. It's like things get so concentrated to where you start to talk, and the thing that you think is a insult is a compliment to them. Like it's happened in with people. Like he thinks he's like insult. He's telling him some bad news, and it's good news to him because it's the values are completely opposite. So you think you're insulting that person, and they're like, thanks. Like that's literally, it's like, it's so weird. And just the way that they are so and angels are like that too. Like they're just so, it almost seems like they're doing like theater, or they're pretending, the way that people describe it. And I think honestly that they're just being so real. I think it's a combination of them being like realer, like the real that's real. Like everything here is just like, I don't know, it's basically a simulation. So not only are they, they're authentic, they're completely genuine. Like we hold things back. Like think about like little kids and how genuine they are, and how, and we just think that's a hallmark of being a kid. And it's really like, no, that's them being genuine. They just are still in touch with it. We think, oh, well, when you grow up, you lose that. No, when you grow up, you struggle to retain it. But like that little kid is being themselves. We just have, we have lost touch with that. So everything is like really watered down until we get to know somebody. And then maybe they'll let us be how we want to be, as close to how we want to be. But it's like, they're just everything is so like dramatic. And, people talk when angels are talking or when demons are talking and they're stern or they're whatever. And it's like, is this a cartoon? Like, what are we dealing with? But it's just like, I think it's a combination of that, of like the spiritual realm, like they're still, and I think we'll get back to that. I think we'll all be able to tap into that. But also, like, they can see like this huge mega stuff going on. It's like we'll have moments of that. Like if you see somebody that, um, it's like all of these little council meetings that people have in their towns where they get up and their child has died or whatever, and they get up and they give a powerful speech and everybody cheers. And it's like we have moments of that because something dire is happening or something, and we get this energy and we feel like we need to convey what's in here. But most of the time we're just doing laundry. You know what I'm saying? So like angels show up and they're just like, hail, valued favorite of God. And you're just like in your pajamas, like you haven't brushed your teeth. And you're just like, what? So I think that both both worlds tend to be really like over the top, but they're not over the top. They're regular. We're under the top. You know what I'm saying? Like we have no idea what's going on. And they're just like, you have taken thousands from me. And you're like, what? And then you're like, that's great news. Like they think they're like upset. Like it's just really weird. It's really weird. It takes some getting used to. Like, but I love the church because they just go, woo! And they just cheer. Like you got to be like a child, man, because this stuff is weird out here. Like, and if anybody like listened in on any of this stuff, they'd be like, okay. But I promise you it's real. All right, so let's see. That's 3 videos for the day. And all I have left are 2 things that I just added willy-nilly today. So I did it. All right, I have unleashed every last thing that I wanted to talk about, basically. And I am done. Back off. Sorry, that's an inside joke. All right, bye, guys.